The most controversial saints in history, controversies and curiosities. There are stories that seem like fairy tales. There are stories that seem like legends. And there are stories that seem impossible. But they all have one thing in common. They were experienced by real people. When we think of saints, we usually imagine very calm, very wise people, always smiling. But what if I told you that some of them were anything but peaceful? Try. Many saints throughout history were controversial, questioned, misinterpreted. Some were called madmen, others witches, and still others dangerous. And why? Because they did things that nobody could explain. If these stories touched you, leave your comment, like, would subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell, so you don't miss the next video as the atmosphere of mystery begins. In this video, you will learn about saints who have divided opinions. People so different, so intense, so full of courage, which ended up creating discussions even within the church itself. Saints who spoke with animals, saints who levitated, saints who had mysterious wounds on their bodies, saints who heard voices that announced wars and victories, and even saints who were persecuted. Even when you're on the right side, the promise that captivates the audience. Get ready, because what you're about to see here is not ordinary. These stories can leave even adults wondering, did this really happen? And I need to warn you now, the last saint on the list is so impressive, so full of mystery and controversy, and even today, 500 years later, people are still debating about it. The humanization of the saints. But before we begin, there's something very important. All these saints were human. They felt fear, sadness, doubt, and even so, they accomplished tremendous things. They weren't born ready. They weren't born perfect. They were people just like you and me. The only difference is that they chose to believe in them. Impossible, irresistible hook closure. So take a deep breath and open your heart, because now you're about to enter a world where miracles and controversies walk hand in hand, where mystery blends with faith, and where each story challenges everything we think we know. Shall we begin? The first story is about a saint who talked to, guess what? Wild animals. Saint Francis of Assisi, the saint who spoke with animals. To begin our journey through the most controversial saints, let's talk about someone who seemed to have been born with a heart made of light, Saint Francis of Assisi. And if you think you've heard this story before, just wait until you discover the details that are coming now. The young rebel who became a saint. Before becoming a saint, Francis was, let's just say, a very different young man. He was rich, loved parties, expensive clothes, and wanted to be a knight. Nothing, absolutely nothing, seemed to indicate that he would be one of the most humble men in history. And that's precisely where the controversy begins. How can someone who has everything in life simply give it all up to live with the poor? Many people at the time thought he had gone mad. The day Francis spoke to the birds after abandoning his life of luxury. Francis began walking through cities preaching peace, and it was during these walks that one of the most famous and most controversial scenes of his life took place. He was in a field and started talking with birds. That's right, with birds. And the most incredible thing, the birds didn't run away. They weren't scared. They came even closer. It seemed like they understood every word. Some say it was a miracle. Others say the birds were just hungry. But one thing is certain, that scene marked the world. The Wolf of Gabio, the most controversial encounter. But Francis didn't just talk to birds. The most famous and also the strangest story took place in the city of Gabio. The city was in a panic because of a giant wolf, ferocious beast that attacked herds and even people. And what did Francis do? He went alone into the forest, Find the wolf. Francisco extends his hand. The wolf lowers its head. Everyone waited to hear screams, but all they heard was silence when the wolf appeared growling. Francisco approached. She looked into his eyes and made the sign of the cross, and the impossible happened. The wolf calmed down. He lowered his head, and he placed his paw on Francis's hand, as if making a deal. Many people at the time said that was a miracle, but others said, he only fed the wolf. That's why the animal calmed down. The discussion continues to this day. The wolf becomes a city dweller after that encounter. The wolf never attacked anyone else. He began living in the city like a big dog. People fed him, played with him, and they say even children would touch him. The wolf has become a city attraction, but it also became a source of controversy. No saint would do that. Some said, others responded. Only a saint could achieve that. The supernatural connection with nature. Francis didn't just talk to animals. He was treating the whole of nature like it was family. He called the sun brother. He called the moon sister. She even called death sister death for some. This was poetry for others. Something weird people do, but Francis believed that everything had life. Everything had value. Everything was a gift. And the big controversy. Was it holiness or exaggeration? Even scholars still debate it today. Did Francis really talk to animals, or did people exaggerate the story? Some say that the animals approached him because they sensed the peace he carried. Others believe it was a miracle. Do you want to know the truth? The most beautiful part of this story isn't whether the wolf actually spoke to him. The most beautiful thing is to think that he managed to transform fear into friendship, hate in peace, and violence in love. Closing of topic 1. And so the story of St. Francis of Assisi became one of the most enchanting and most discussed of all time. A simple, humble saint, but capable of transforming even the heart of a wild wolf. And if you found this story impressive, the next one is even more mysterious. Now let's meet a saint who, they say, arrived in Levitate during prayers, Saint Teresa of Avila. The mystic who levitated imagined someone who lived in a time when almost no one could speak openly about feelings, spirituality, or mysterious experiences. Now imagine that person being a woman, and more than that, a woman saying she was talking to God, who had visions, that he received spiritual messages. It seemed to emanate from my body, a surge of light that I felt. That's where the story begins. Saint Teresa of Avila, one of the most controversial and most impressive saints that ever existed. The girl who wanted to go to heaven. Teresa was different. From a young age, while other children were playing, arguing about who would be king, princess, or knight, Teresa wanted something else. She wanted to be a saint. And not only did he want to, he actually planned it. One day, she and her brother decided they wanted to be martyrs because they thought that way they would get to heaven faster. They gathered some things and tried to run away from home. Try to escape, like two children trying to take a shortcut to heaven. The adventure didn't last long. An uncle found them both along the way. But this showed the world that Teresa had a different kind of hunger. A hunger for spirituality, for meaning, for something immense that no one around quite understood. The convent full of noise and the heart full of silence. When she grew up, Teresa went to a convent. But the convent wasn't what she had imagined. Far from being a quiet place filled with prayer, it was almost like a communal house. People coming in all the time. Conversations back and forth, laughter. Visits, movement, religious life seemed more lukewarm than sacred. It was precisely in this noisy environment that Teresa began to feel something profound. During her prayers, she said that she felt God speaking to her in silence. It wasn't a voice like a person's. It was like a thought that came with light. It's hot, a presence that filled everything. And those moments started to get more intense, deeper, more extraordinary. But this brought about a huge problem. The visions that terrified the powerful Teresa's mystical experiences became so intense that she began to write about them. She said she saw bright lights, that she felt her heart open up without physical pain, that he was receiving messages about what he should do, that sometimes she felt as if she were leaving her body for a few moments. For some, this was a sign of holiness. For others, it was a sign of madness, or something worse. Religious leaders of the time who were very strict were suspicious. Is this real? Would God speak to a woman? Is she dangerous? Could this be the work of evil? And then came the most tense moment. Teresa was investigated by the Inquisition. The Inquisition was not a friendly conversation. It was a powerful institution that judged any different idea and spiritual visions, mostly from women. They were viewed with enormous suspicion. Her future was in the hands of men who didn't know if she was an enlightened saint or a dangerous impostor. But Teresa did not bow down. She didn't back down for a minute. She spoke firmly. If my experiences come from God, no one can silence me. And he continued writing. He continued praying. He continued having visions. This made her controversial, but also absolutely fascinating. The woman who wanted to reform the impossible Teresa believed that convents were far from what they should be. There were too many distractions, that people were losing their spiritual focus, that faith was becoming weak, lacking depth. So, she decided to renovate everything, reforming convents, create new rules, reorganize entire religious routines. That would be difficult even today. Now imagine this in the 16th century, and being done by a woman. Teresa traveled, spoke with authorities, faced criticism, and created new convents much simpler, quieter, and focused on deep prayer. The further she advanced, the more enemies he gained, the more enemies he made. But he also gained admirers. People saw in her a different kind of strength, a courage that no one could explain. The ecstasy that stopped the world. And here we have the most controversial moment of all. Teresa described an episode so intense, so profound, so moving, that it became one of the greatest works of art in history. The Ecstasy of Saint Teresa, sculpted by Bernini. She said an angel appeared before her, an angel with a dart of light. He touched her heart, and she felt pain and at the same time absolute joy, as if his heart were pierced by pure love. It was so strong that she could barely breathe. For some, this was holiness. For others, it was an exaggeration. Some thought she was delirious. Others thought she was feeling something too strong for a woman. But Teresa didn't care. She said, "It is impossible to explain in human words what comes from God." And even today, artists, religious figures, curious individuals, and scholars debate this episode. The saint who faced the world. And one Saint Teresa was. Mysticism writer, reformer, spiritual leader, investigated, acclaimed, controversy, loved, hated, and finally canonized. She left behind books that changed the history of spirituality. She renovated convents that still exist today. She raised her voice when no one expected her to speak. She maintained her faith even when surrounded by doubt, persecution, and fear. And that is why, even today, she is considered one of the most controversial, fascinating, and mysterious figures from the world of saints. Saint Joan of Arc, the warrior who heard voices. Get ready. If you thought it was surprising to hear about saints with wounds, visions, and bilocation, now the story takes a leap literally. Because the next saint is one of the most unbelievable of all time. A man who, in front of people, rose from the ground and rose into the air, as if something invisible were pulling it upwards. He is Saint Joseph of Cupertino, also known as the saint who flew, the distracted saint, the saint persecuted for his own faith, and its story is so impressive that it still sparks debate among scientists, religious figures, and historians today. The boy almost everyone thought had no future Joseph was born into a poor family. He was so clumsy that he earned nicknames. He was so distracted that he kept tripping. He was so absent-minded that people said he was good for nothing. When I tried to learn, it took a long time. When he tried to help, he ended up making things worse. When he tried to work, he was dismissed. Nobody believed he had any future, but there was something different about him. One enormous sensitivity, a silent heart, a simple love for God that he couldn't explain. The first levitation that changed everything one day. During a religious celebration, Joseph was so focused, so emotional, so connected to the moment, that something impossible happened. He began to stand up, little by little, as if it had no weight. People fell silent, wide-eyed, open mouths. Some were praying, others were shouting, others ran away thinking it was witchcraft. But he kept climbing, until it floats for a few seconds. When it descended slowly, like a falling leaf, everyone was shocked. And that was just the beginning. The saint who flew whenever he felt divine love levitations began to occur with frightening frequency. During masses, during prayers, when I saw sacred images, when I listened to religious music sometimes. Simply seeing an animal or a landscape that is too beautiful. It seemed that anything that deeply touched his heart swept him off his feet. Witnesses claimed they saw him levitate more than 70 times, climb up until you almost touch the ceiling, floating for long seconds, being impossible to pull back to the ground when it was in the air. Some Franciscans even tried to prevent Joseph from being in public, because nobody knew when he would fly. From wonder to fear, when the church began to investigate at that time, the church was extremely strict about miracles and levitating. It was so unusual that it quickly became suspicious. Some said, "It's a miracle. It's holiness." Others said, "This is very strange. We need to investigate." And so Joseph was investigated by Inquisition, the same rigorous institution that judged witchcraft, heresy, and unusual phenomena. Imagine his fear, a simple man who could barely explain himself, having to answer whether he was a wizard. Miracles were being faked. The people were being deceived. He was working for evil. The inquisitors observed Joseph for weeks. They analyzed his behavior. They spoke with witnesses. But in the end, they realized he was too humble to invent anything. I didn't want fame. He couldn't control the levitations. I wasn't seeking attention. And he lived in deep prayer. He was acquitted, but his life was never the same again. The saint imprisoned inside convents. The problem was that Jos had become too famous. People traveled miles to see him. They wanted to witness their levitations. Some went out of devotion, others out of curiosity, others purely for show. And this bothered religious authorities. They began transferring him from convent to convent, closed, isolated, away from the public eye. Many believed that Joseph was punished for something he couldn't control, simply because his miracles were too great for that time. Even so, Joseph did not complain. He said, "God knows. That's all that matters." The last levitation and the last lesson, even in his old age, Joseph still experienced moments of profound spiritual emotion. In one of his last masses, he knelt down, overcome with emotion, and began to rise once more, slowly. Like always, the monks present wept. They thought they would never see such a miracle again. And his final moments were marked not by flying, but by a simple phrase that moved everyone. "I'm going up to where I've always wanted to be." The saint who defied gravity and logic, Saint Joseph of Cupertino, remains one of the most debated and mysterious saints in history. Many have tried to explain. Scientists conducted research. Historians reviewed documents. Religious leaders analyzed the testimonies. But to this day, no one knows for sure how a simple, poor, shy man, considered without a future, became the saint who flew. He showed the world that not everyone who seems weak is actually weak. Logic doesn't always explain everything. The extraordinary cannot always be avoided. And that faith, when sincere, can lift up even the most unlikely of men. Therefore, Joseph of Cupertino became one of the most controversial, incredible, and surprising saints in all of history. What do these saints have in common? What can these controversial saints teach us? After hearing such impressive, strange, mysterious, and different stories, it's impossible not to ask one question. Why did these people, so simple and so unlikely, become some of the most controversial saints in history? And when we observe Saint Francis, Saint Teresa, Padre Pio, and Saint Joseph of Cupertino, we realize something very important. None of them sought fame. None of them sought applause. None of them wanted to be a phenomenon. In truth, they only wanted one thing: to live their faith sincerely. But when someone lives their faith so deeply, something extraordinary begins to happen. Some touched animals and saw respect where there was fear. Others heard voices of silence. Others bled without having any wounds. Others even floated. And the whole world, often, I didn't know how to deal with it. When the extraordinary meets distrust, one of the most striking themes in this video is, every time something extraordinary happens, doubt also arises. Did Saint Francis talk to animals? Some believed it. Others said it was an exaggeration. Did Saint Teresa have profound visions? Some thought it was God. Others thought it was just my imagination. Did Padre Pio bleed and appear into places? Some saw it as a miracle. Others saw it as fraud. Did Saint Joseph of Cupertino fly? Some cried when they saw it. Others trembled with fear. It's always like this. When something too big happens, humans try to explain, check, criticize, to deny, or simply walk away. But the truth is that the extraordinary has never existed in a way that can be fully understood. It exists for inspire, and these saints have inspired even to this day. What they all have in common, did you notice? All these saints had three things in common. 1. Humility. They weren't seeking attention. They didn't want to become news. They didn't want to prove anything to anyone. They lived their faith in silence. 2. Courage. They faced reviews, persecutions, investigations, rejection, isolation, fear, and even life-threatening risks, and even so, they didn't give up. 3. Experiences that challenge logic. Each of them experienced something that no one could explain. Conversations with animals, spiritual visions, mysterious wounds, levitation. They were different, and the whole world noticed. This combination of humility plus courage plus mystery, that's what makes them so controversial, debated, and fascinating even today. And why do their stories still enchant the world? Because deep down, we all, even those who don't believe, feel something when we hear stories like that. We feel that there is something more, something bigger, something that doesn't fit into the normal rules of life. Human beings like mystery. Do you like the what if scenario? He likes the inexplicable. He likes things that defy logic. That's why these stories continue to live on. That's why videos like this are shared so much. That is why these saints continue to be remembered. They make us look up to the invisible, for what science still cannot explain, For what logic cannot yet grasp, the extraordinary is closer than it seems. And maybe just, the great lesson from these saints is this: you don't need to be perfect to experience something extraordinary. Saint Francis was frail. Saint Teresa was doubted. Father Pio was persecuted. Saint Joseph was considered without a future. Even so, they all left marks that have lasted for centuries. The truth is simple. Sometimes the greatest miracles happen through the most unlikely people. Sometimes the weakest carry the greatest strengths. Sometimes what no one expects is precisely what changes the world. And that's why these stories need to be told. Just a reminder, the mystery still exists, the impossible still happens, and faith continues to lift people up, some with courage, others with tears, and some, literally, to heaven. If these stories touched you, leave your comment, like, would subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos.